So I think we're live now, so let me just get off of there. All right, shalom everyone, I'm Brother Doug with the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly, and tonight we're going to be returning on our usual Sabbath evening type of studies. So obviously my mom, Sister Sharon's with us. Over on the other side of the room here, we got Sister Shoshana, Brother Dennis, and we have Brother Matthew just checking out the fellowship to see how, just to see and get a feel for how the fellowship is ran here. So he's a guest with us tonight with his wife. So we're going to be doing differences in the book of Genesis. So let's get started here. Let me just exit out of here and try to get to my Google Docs here. All right, so I recommend for these type of studies, if you have like parallel Bibles, I know some brothers and sisters out there have parallel Bibles or parallel translations. I really recommend for that. I know it's kind of hard to find it because LXX is like, it seems like it's frowned upon. The Septuagint nowadays, you got to buy it by itself. It's not even part of a whole Bible. Usually you got to find the Septuagint Old Testament of its own translation. So I know sometimes it's hard to find it in a parallel, but if you're able to try to have a physical copy of that with like side by side with a King James or so on and so forth, to do this type of comparison. So I think we got as far as Genesis 26 or 27 last time. So we might have been right at here. I think Genesis 27:43, the Masoretic text omits Mesopotamia. So I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. Let's go to the MySword. Also, the MySword's a great tool too. It will take you longer. You'll have to flip between translations. But the MySword is a tool for this. So go to LXXE, which by the way, LXXE is the Roman numerals LXX 70 in English E. So this is the Bretons here. So let's see here. So Genesis, is it 27:43? I think I just said. Okay, so 27:43. Show you guys what I'm talking about here. So here it says, "And now my son, hear my voice, and rise and depart quickly into Mesopotamia to Laban, my brother in Haran." So Mesopotamia, by the way, would be the whole region of, like, you got Aramea, Haran, you got Shinar in the same region, you got Babylon in the same region. It's like a whole big region over there. But Mesopotamia encompassed like all those countries, including Aramea, which is what the Masoretic would say. It would say Aramea. So it's the same region, same place. So just Genesis 27:43. Oh, that's okay. But it doesn't tell you that's where he's telling him to go to find Laban, his uncle, which I find it a little weird, like why they would leave that out. But anyway, so maybe the Masoretes felt that it was redundant to have it there in verse 43. I don't know, but the Septuagint has Mesopotamia in the Greek there, so to let you know where he's telling him to go to find Laban. Okay, so anyway, so that's one of the issues we have here in the Masoretic text. Sometimes key phrases are left out. All right, so let's just see here. My stupid charger. Okay, so Genesis 28 verse 3 LXX has my Elohim, or in the Greek would be Hetu Theos, versus the Hebrew Al Shaddai. So a lot of the times where it says Al Shaddai in the Hebrew, you really don't see that equated in the Septuagint. Usually wherever you see Al Shaddai, you see my Elua or Elohim. Okay, so for example here, Barashith, Genesis 28 verse 3. In the LXX it says, "And may my Elohim baruch you," or barak you, I should say, present tense, barak you and increase you and multiply you, and you shall become gatherings of nations. So the major difference there, like I said, is my mighty one versus Al Shaddai. So A lot of times that happens. And it's funny to note also that the oldest version of the Tanakh that even has in the Hebrew or Aramaic Al Shaddai is the Targums. Any manuscript before that doesn't really have that title for Yahuwah. So, but anyway, so Genesis 28, verse 19, Masoretic text omits ulam. So ulam is a place as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to go to Genesis 28, 19. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of that city was called Luz at the first. So that's what the Masoretic says there. By the way, the translation doesn't really matter. You could like use a JPS Tanakh or ISR. It will say the same thing. So now if you go to Septuagint, it says, and he called the name of that place the house of Elohim. So what the Septuagint does a lot of the times, it doesn't give you a literal transliteration. It will give you the meaning of a name a lot of the times. The house of Elohim, and the name of the city before was Ulam Luz. So Luz and Ulam are combined together as one name of a place, which is seems to be a decent bit different there. You just have Luz and Ulam's not part of the word there. So that's the major difference there. It'd be nice if these stupid emails would stop coming in. Okay, so we're moving on to the next verse here, Genesis 28, verse 20. Okay, Masoretic text omits Yahuwah. Okay, so we're going to go here. I'll show you guys how to find this. It's kind of tricky because the Greek doesn't literally have Yahuwah there. They'll have Kurios there. So a lot of the times you have to go into like the Thayer's lexicon and all that to find in the Septuagint. So I'll show you guys what I mean here. So it says in verse 20 of Genesis 28, Barashith 28, verse 20 says, and Yaakov vowed a vow saying, if Yahuwah, yeah, I don't like how it's worded sometimes backwards in the ABP here, but it should say, and Yaakov vowed a vow saying, if Yahuwah Elohim should be with me, okay, or if Yahuwah Elohim is with me and should guard me in this journey which I go, and should give to me bread to eat and cloak to put on. Now, in your English Bibles, the easiest way to see that it's not there is the English in your Bibles would just have G-O-D. There would be no all caps Lord in front of the G-O-D. So clearly this is a substitution for Yahuwah's name, Kurios. And that's why some translators will even put in all caps here. So this is the same Greek word, by the way, that's used in Romans 10:13, by the way, in the New Testament. So so the Masoretic would even have the word there at all. Even the substitution there is not there. So it would say in the Masoretic, and Jacob vowed a vow saying, if Elohim be with me. So a lot of the times the Masoretes, and you can research this for yourselves. I'll give you guys the resources to look this up for yourselves. I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other, but multiple secular sources out there will prove this, that after Babylon, post-Babylon, at some point in time, the synagogue system stopped using Yahuwah's name. They would use Elohim as a name. So that's most likely why they omitted Yahuwah in that particular verse, in verse 20. So anyway, so just wanted to mention that does happen sometimes with the Masoretic. Okay, so now we're going to go to chapter 29, Genesis 29, verse 1. Masoretic text omits to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, and the brother Rebekah, mother of Jacob and Esau. So Syrians were like the Assyrians. That's where we get like Assyria from, Syria. So that's basically the same place. So again, Syria is in that region of Mesopotamia and all that. So we're going to Genesis 29, verse 1. And in the Masoretic, it would say, then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. Just stops there. Let's go to the Septuagint, what the Septuagint says here. A lot more there. It says here, and Jacob started and went to the land of the east to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, and the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. So there's like a whole nother sentence there. especially the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, that's left out for whatever reason. So that's the one major difference there. So now we're going to be going to same chapter here, by the way. We're going to be going to the last verse of the chapter. The Septuagint says Yahuwah Elohim. Masoretic text only has Yahuwah here. And we'll get into why that's important after we look at the two versions here. I'll show you guys why that's important. Okay, so LXX, see how it has Kurios, then Theos combined there. Okay, so in the LXX, whoops, it would actually say in Genesis 29, verse 31, and when Yahuwah Elohim saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Now, if you go to the Masoretic here, it says, and when Yahuwah saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. The reason I think they leave out the title Elohim after Yahuwah is because these rabbis, especially the Masoretes of the 1000 AD, they understood that that compound name was pretty much like a name for this pre-incarnate, the word of Yahuwah person. So they actually understood that. So whenever they see, from the Septuagint where it would have Kurios first and then Theos together, they understood that, okay, this is talking about someone, basically they understood that it was pointing to a oneness here because it's talking about the word of Yahuwah as he is Yahuwah, since he's being called Yahuwah. Okay, so they had an extreme problem with this. You see this even in Yahusha's day, mind you. Yahusha lived at what 700-800 years before the Masoretic text. Okay, so even the rabbis of that day would, rend their garments when Yahusha said, before Abraham was I am. He's calling himself the Ahaya Ashar Ahaya. Okay, so these rabbis of the 1000th century, mind you, 700-800 years after Yahusha, they realize this. They realize who Yahuwah Elohim is, and they're like, oh, we got to take this away. We can't let people think that there's actually a oneness there. There is the Father and Son that are both Yahuwah, that are the same exact entity. So they take any place that Yahusha would be pointed to in the Tanakh, they're going to take him out. That directly would point to Yahuwah. Point to him. So when you see like Yahuwah of armies, Yahuwah of hosts, Yahuwah Elohim together as a compound name, that's referring to the son Yahusha, the Ben Yahusha. So I just wanted to explain that, why it's important to point that out. Let's see here. Okay, we're at chapter 30, verse 8. Chapter 30, verse 8. Masoretic text omits Elohim has helped me. For whatever reason they do, they omit this whole statement here, which is very weird because this is the birth happening here of Naphtali. So in the Septuagint in Genesis chapter 30, verse 8, it says, and Rachel said, Elohim has helped me. So that phrase right there is not in the Masoretic. So it would just say, and Rachel said, with great wrestlings, I have wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. So there's no mention of Yahuwah helping her or Yahuwah giving her this son. Very weird to me. That's very strange to me. And on Genesis 30, verse 8. Now we're going to go to chapter 30, verse 18. Masoretic text omits reward here. Okay, so we're going to go back here. Okay, so verse 18 of that same chapter. Okay. All right, so Masoretic text says here, and Leah said, Elohim has given me my hire because I have given my maiden to my husband, and she called his name Issachar. Okay. Now, if you go to the Septuagint, it says, and Leah said, Elohim has given me my reward because I have gave my maid to my husband, and she called his name Issachar, which is reward. So again, for whatever reason, the Masoretes are trying to leave out the fact that Yahuwah is being thanked for these children. The Leah and Rachel realize these are gifts from Yahuwah, that Yahuwah has given her the ability to give birth. So for whatever reason, the Masoretes decide, oh, let's get rid of that. Genesis 30, verse 14. Masoretic text says wheat. Septuagint says barley. So the only difference here is the Septuagint is being a little bit more specific. It's being a little bit more specific of what type of wheat you could say, or what type of grain. I should correct myself there. In the next verse here in chapter 30, we have verse 18. Masoretic text omits reward. And I think we already talked about that. That might have been a typo. I think I had that before. Genesis 30, verse 30. LXX again has Yahuwah Elohim. Masoretic text only has Yahuwah. Okay. Genesis 30, verse 42. Masoretic text adds feeble. So let's see the importance, why feeble, why they would feel the need to add that there. So that should be Genesis 30, verse 42. Okay, let's look at the Masoretic first. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. Let's see if that word's actually necessary in the verse there. But he did not put them in whenever the cattle happened to bring forth, but the unmarked ones were Laban's and the marked ones were Jacob's. I could see siding with the Masoretic text that the word feeble might be necessary in that verse to give the distinction, but I could kind of figure that marked and unmarked would be, ones that are stronger versus weaker. I could still get that understanding, but the word feeble might be necessary in that verse. So I don't know. I don't really have too much opinion on that, which one should be right and wrong. So here we got Genesis 31. Oh, hold on. So we went through that. So feeble. All right. Genesis 31, verse 37. Not 37, my bad. 31, verse 7. Genesis 31, verse 7. LXX has 10 lambs. Masoretic text has 10 times. So I guess what the Septuagint's doing here is they're paraphrasing. They're letting you know what the 10 times is referring to, how Jacob was cheated by Laban 10 different times. So they're giving you the actual possessions that are being referred to those 10 times. So not a huge difference, but still a difference. Masoretic text omits he-goats in Genesis 31, verse 10. Masoretic text omits he-goats again in verse 12 of chapter 31. Let's see, Genesis 31, verse 24. This seems like a huge difference here. Genesis 31, verse 24. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, so it says, and Elohim came to Laban the Syrian in sleep by night and said to him, take heed to yourself that you speak not at any time to Jacob or Jacob evil things. So this makes sense. The Septuagint, in my opinion, makes a little bit more sense. Yahuwah is being very specific with Laban, like you better not threaten his life. You better not speak to him evil things. That's like the context there. Versus the Masoretic that makes it a little bit more generalized. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Elohim came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said to him, take heed that you speak not to Jacob either to or evil. So the Masoretic would make you think he's not supposed to speak to Jacob at all, which I don't know. That doesn't make much sense to me. So these are just some of the differences here that we're seeing here. So, and again, we see that again in verse 29 of the same chapter, by the way. So if it's starting to get redundant with differences, just by the way, FYI, for viewers and listeners on YouTube, I'm not going to be going to the shared screen if it's the same differences like repetitively. Okay, so anyway, Genesis chapter 31, verse 34, Masoretic text adds, and Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. Okay, so we're going to see how important that verse is, that addition to the verses there. Okay. Oops, stupid thing. What is going on here, man? I don't know what's going on. It's acting really weird right now. I think it just glitched. So what was I at, Mom? Genesis, was that 31, 34? Let me just double check.
Yeah, that's where we were. Mm-hmm.
All right, Genesis 31, 34. Let me go back to my sword here. Okay. All right. Okay, so the Masoretic says, now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture, Baruch you, Mom, and Baruch you, Mom, and sat upon them, and Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. Now, in this case, this seems a little redundant. I don't think we need to know he didn't found them. I mean, for it to literally say he didn't found them, obviously he didn't find them. If you read the next verse. So that's kind of like unnecessary. That you'll see that sometimes with manuscript issues. Sometimes the writer or the scribe of the manuscript feels the need to add something. And this is like not really necessary. It's not really necessary to add that to the verse, in my opinion. So, Mom, if you need to put the air on.
I don't feel like I need
okay.
to
All right. I just don't want you getting hot. Okay.
No,
all right. Fine. Okay. Okay, so we were at we did 3134, 3141, LXX lambs, Masoretic text times. Again, I'm not going to go through the same thing again. We already seen that before. Genesis 3142, Masoretic text adds Elohim. So we're going to look at that there. So Genesis 3142. So unless I had the Elohim of my father, so this is how the Septuagint reads here. Unless I had the Elohim of my father Abraham and the father of Yitzhak, now you would have sent me away empty. Elohim saw my humiliation and the labor of my hands and rebuked you yesterday. So we'll see how it differs here in the Masoretic. Except the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham. So like they kind of redundantly add Elohim a second time in that first sentence where it doesn't make sense. He's already talking about the Elohim of his father. So he doesn't need to say the Elohim of Abraham after he literally just said the Elohim of my father. Yeah. So, you know, that's being redundant there in the Masoretic text. So I just wanted to show that real quick. So let's see here. I think we're at Genesis 31:44 now. Masoretic text omits, and he said to him, behold, there is no one with us. Behold, Elohim is witness between me and you. So we're going to see how this is important. This whole statement that's omitted is pretty important to the context here. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, so it just says in the Masoretic, now therefore come you, let us make a covenant, I and you, and let it be for witness between me and you. Where the Septuagint says, and now then come, let me make a covenant, both I and you, and it shall be for a witness between me and you. And he said to him, behold, there is no one with us. Behold, Elohim is witness between me and you. So again, this gives you a little bit more context that the reason he's saying this is because they're alone in the field together. They're like, listen, we're the only two witnesses of this other than Yahuwah. That's about it. There's no one with us right now. So I kind of like how it gives a little bit of a backdrop in the Septuagint version and why he's saying this. Okay, so the next one we have here is Genesis 31:46. Okay, Masoretic text omits, and Laban said to him, the heap witness between me and you today. So again, we have something omitted here, this time in verse 46. So the Septuagint would say, and Yaqub said to his brother, gather stones, or I guess brothers, gather stones, and they gathered stones and made a heap and ate there upon the heap. And Laban said to him, this heap is a witness between me and you today. And here we have, so there's no mention here about the heap being a witness between him and Laban. Ooh, sorry about that, guys. All right. Let me see here. Let's see, we're at, I think, verse 48 here of Barashith, Genesis 31, so 31:48. Masoretic text omits half of the verse. So we're going to look at that right now. All right, so we're going to look at Genesis 31:48. All right. Genesis 31:48. So the Masoretic says, and Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and you this day. Therefore, the name of it is called Gilead. All right. Okay. So now the difference here, the Septuagint says, and Laban said to Jacob, behold, this heap and the pillar which I have set between you and me, this heap witnesses, and this pillar witnesses, therefore its name was called the heap witness. So there's like a little bit in the middle that's taken out for whatever reason. So these are very important context stuff that's being omitted, and that's why I'm pointing this out here. Okay, so we're up to Genesis 31, verse 49. Yeah, there's a lot in chapter 31, guys. There's a lot. Genesis 31:49, LXX has Elohim. Masoretic text has Yahuwah. So in this exception to the rule, you have the Masoretic text actually honoring the Father's name rather than a title. So this is the one seldom time, or there's very few times I take the Masoretic over the Septuagint, but this time I do in Genesis 31 verse 49. So anyway, we're going to the next one here. Genesis 31:52. Masoretic text adds, this heap be witness and this pillar be witness. So now in verse 52, it's added there. So this is how the Septuagint would read in verse 52. For if I should not cross over unto you, neither should you cross over to me, for mischief beyond this heap and this pillar. I mean, you kind of already get the idea from the Septuagint that the heap and the pillar are the two witnesses within their covenant. So, and obviously the prior verses in that chapter. So now the Masoretic felt a need to say that these are the witnesses. This heap be witness and this pillar be witness that I will not pass over this heap to you, that you shall not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. All right. Let's see here. So now we're up to Genesis 31, verse 53. Or no, 54. 53. Yeah. Okay, so 53 says, Masoretic text adds the Elohim of their father. Okay, so let's look at that really quick. Whoops. Oh, crud. Okay, so Masoretic text says here, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Nahor, the Elohim of their father. Again, it's like a statement being added there after it's already stated in a way, because he's already saying who is the Elohim of Abraham, he's the Elohim of Nahor. Obviously, those are their ancestors, so those are their fathers. He doesn't need to reiterate it. So that's where the Masoretic text is adding that there, where the Septuagint will just say the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Nahor judge between us, and Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Okay, so the major difference there is that the Masoretic text felt a need for a third time to mention that Yahuwah is the Elohim of their fathers, which it's already being stated twice in the verse. So, all right, so I think that was verse 54 in that chapter. All right, so I don't get a lot of stupid stuff in the background here. All right, here we go. So I think we're almost at Genesis 32 at this point. Okay. Okay, verse 54 we're actually going to now. So Genesis 31:54. All right. So Genesis 31:54 says in the Septuagint, and he offered a sacrifice in the mountain and called his brothers, and they ate and drank and slept in the mountain. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything different there. I'll actually delete that one. There's nothing different there. So that's a mistake I made there. Okay, let me just get back to the document, guys. All right, got some technical difficulties tonight with this connection here. It's very slow. It's usually not like this. Okay, now we're definitely at chapter 32. Okay, all right. Let me just fix that real quick, guys, and then we're going to go to chapter 32, verse 1. So Barashith, Genesis 32, verse 1. Okay. And Masoretic text omits and having looked. Okay, so we're going to look at that verse real quick. Oh, that's why it's slowing down. I had stupid Facebook open in the background. Here we go. So the LXX says here, and Yaqub departed for his journey, and having looked up, he saw the army of Elohim encamped and the messengers of Elohim met him. So the major difference here is that the Septuagint lets you know he was looking up, and that's how he saw them. So it kind of like leaves out a pretty important part of him seeing what we know as Jacob's ladder, and all that. So he actually looked up to the sky and started, seeing that stuff. So anyway, let's see here. So we're at chapter 32, verse 5. Masoretic text omits Esau. Very interesting. You'll see that a lot too. Certain lineages they're not proud of. In other places, especially the book of Job. Let's see here. So the Masoretic text says, and I have oxen and donkeys, flocks, men servant, women servants, and I have sent to tell my master that I may find favor in your sight. So then we look at the Septuagint here. It says, there were born to me oxen, donkeys, sheep, and men servants and women servants, and I sent to tell my master Esau that your servant might find favor in your sight. So interesting that Jacob's calling him his master there. That's kind of interesting. So I guess he's showing him respect. Whether his brother deserves it or not, but he's still showing him respect. Mm-hmm. So very interesting. The name Esau is not mentioned in the Masoretic in that chapter. I mean, in that verse, in verse 5 there. Now we're going to go to Genesis 32, verse 10. LXX has right rulings. Masoretic text has mercy or favor. This is definitely a different context it will give you. So here we go. The Septuagint says in verse 10 here, let there be to me a sufficiency of all the right ruling and all the truth you have worked with your servant. For with this my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I've become two camps. Seems like I think he's talking to Esau in this context, I think. So the least of all the mercies, all the truth which you have showed unto your servant. Or actually, no, he's talking to Yahuwah here, actually, yeah. This would make sense if he's praying to Yahuwah about this. Yeah, definitely he's praying to Yahuwah. The next verse shows the context. All right. So yeah, you have right ruling, which the Septuagint has right ruling, and then you have the Masoretic text, which has mercies, which it would be I mean, I get that he's praying to Yahuwah, but right ruling seems a little bit more contextually fitting since he's talking about all the commands Yahuwah has given him and everything. Let me see here. So we're at, let's see here. So we're at chapter 33 now, verse 18. So 33, verse 18. Okay. All right. So it says in the Septuagint, it says, and Yaqub came to Salem, a city of Sakima, which is in the land of Canaan, when he departed out of Mesopotamia, Syria, and took up a possession in front of the city. So again, it talks about when he departed out of Mesopotamia of Syria. So trying to see what the difference here is. You have Salem. Now, I guess the major difference would be Mesopotamia of Syria versus Padan Aram. That seems to be the major difference there. Yeah. Yeah, it's a minor difference, but definitely a difference in the names of the lands that he's coming from. So not a huge difference though. So that was oh, okay, I see. Does yours have Salem, Mom?
No.
Okay, yeah. So that's what's missing, Salem, which is very important actually, because that's where Melchizedek comes from.
Right.
Melchizedek is the king of Salem.
Right.
So the Masoretic text probably would remove that on purpose, I'm assuming. Genesis 35, verse 4. Masoretic text omits unto this day, that's a pretty big, important phrase there. It's letting you know, even unto the day of it being written, basically. Let's see here. Okay, so let's see here. 35, verse 4. So 35, verse 4. So Barashith, chapter 35, verse 4. Okay, so it says here in the Septuagint, and they gave to Yaqub the strange mighty ones which were in their hands, and the earrings which were in their ears. And Yaqub hid them under the turpentine tree, which is in Sakima, and destroyed them to this day. So basically, it's showing that from that point on, those idols were never rebuilt, since it has the phrase "unto this day," meaning when Masha's writing Genesis.
Yours says turpentine tree? Is that
yeah.
Mine says terebinth.
Yeah, turpentine, I'm assuming.
Never heard of turpentine tree.
Let's see here.
I know what turpentine is.
Let's see here, Greek for turpentine. Yeah, it's hard to know whether or not that word is turpentine or not, because the Thayers is not showing me a lot there. So I don't know. That could be a translator bias there, because Brenton is British, so he's probably trying to find the best word in their language for that. Could have made a mistake there. So anyway, but the bigger part of that verse, the problem is unto this day is not there in the Masoretic. So
right.
Genesis 35, verse 7, Masoretic text again omits Esau. We'll move on from that since we've already seen that before. Genesis 35, Barashith 35, verse 21, is not in the Septuagint, it seems. That's what I have here. Verse 21 has been omitted, which is very strange. Sometimes there are fragments in the Septuagint, so it's very possible, but it looks like it's actually here. I don't know. One of the translations trying to claim that it's not there. Oh, I see what Brenton did. He moved it to be part of 22, so it's there. Okay, I see what he did. And it came to pass when Yasharal dwelt in that land that Reuben went and laid with Bilhah, concubine of his father Yaqub, and Yasharal heard, and the thing appeared grievous before him, and the sons of Yaqub were 12. So this is showing Reuben committing adultery here, sleeping with his father's wife, revealing the nakedness of his father and all that. So So let me just see here. So just want to see if there's any difference there. I don't think there's a difference in verse 22. Yeah, that's it. So we can actually take that off of the list there. Let's see here. 35:21. Let's take that off the list there. Okay, chapter 36, verse 7. And we're going to try, guys, we're going to try to at least get as close to chapter 40 tonight as possible. I want to at least get 10 chapters accomplished here. Okay. So Genesis 36, verse 7, abundance of their possessions. Okay, versus because of their cattle. So that's, very minor difference. We'll move on from that. Genesis 36, verse 27, LXX has Balaam. Masoretic text has Bilhan, so that's a lot different there. Genesis 36, verse 30, LXX has Rezon. Masoretic text has Dishon. Definitely a difference in geography there with the names there. All right, so the Septuagint of Genesis 36, verse 35 has Gethaim. Masoretic text has Avith or Uif. Chapter 36, verse 39, Fagor is in the Septuagint. Pa'u is in the Masoretic text, which is weird. Genesis 36, verse 43, LXX has Safuin versus Masoretic text, Iram. Genesis 37, verse 5, Masoretic text adds, and they hated him yet the more. I think that's one I definitely want to look at with the
Even
comparison.
more,
Yeah, even more. So Genesis 37. By the way, if you guys have these differences in your Masoretic text Bibles, just FYI, some modern translations do consult with the Septuagint in certain isolated verses.
Mm-hmm.
So viewers and listeners out there, if you have an NIV and it might agree with the Brentons, that's probably why, because sometimes they do use the Septuagint, like translations like ISV, NET, NLT, so on and so forth. A lot of the modern ones seem to cite the Septuagint sometimes. The New Hard English Bible, YHWH edition, another one. Okay, so Genesis 37, verse 5, Masoretic says, and Yusuf dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him yet the more. In the Masoretic, it has it there.
Yeah.
But doesn't have it in the Septuagint, which I find interesting. So it seems like in their mind that his brothers hated him more than maybe they hated him. So I guess what they're trying to do is paint his brothers out to be more wicked than they really are. I don't know, but the Septuagint does not have that phrase. They hated him even more. So anyway. Genesis 37, verse 28, Masoretic text has silver, LXX has gold, minor difference. But it seems like for whatever reason, they changed gold to silver. I'm not too sure why. So Masoretic text has Yahuwah, LXX has Elohim in verse 7 of chapter 38, also in verse 10. So we're not going to really go through those since those are both the same.
It's evident to you why they said even more, right? What the reasoning was, because I went back a little bit.
Yeah.
And they hated him because of that beautiful coat and that the father loved him.
The Septuagint probably didn't feel the need to add that in there.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's being redundant a little bit,
Sure,
if that's the case. Because if you read the whole story, it's very evident. So it's kind of like the Masoretes are adding to scripture, adding things that they don't really need to be added for whatever reason. Genesis 39, verse 2, we have the Masoretic text has the word Adon or Adonai there. Septuagint has Kurios. Same thing with Genesis 39, verse 3. And again, I'm gonna give you guys some links on that. We really don't have time to explain that because it would take a pretty decent while for me to explain where Adonai actually came from, the modern Hebrew word Adonai. and why there's really no equivalent for it in the Septuagint. Okay, so basically, to give you a straight to the point historical info on it, there's multiple resources out there that point Adon or Adonai to the Hellenistic Greek deity known as Adonis, and basically, from what it looks like, it seems like they adapted Adon as a word for master or lord in their Babylonian Hebrew language today, somewhere around the early synagogue period, to hide Yahuwah's name, and because they started getting messed up with Baal worship, they started forgetting Yahuwah's name for the worship of Baal, Jeremiah 23:27. So it seems like this was part of their, mixing Baal worship with the worship of Yahuwah there and all that. So anyway, all right, so let me see here. All right, so we talked about that. Genesis 39, verse 2, verse 3 again. Genesis 39, verse 4, Masoretic text omits master for whatever reason. They omit the word master there in the text. So let's go to Genesis 39, verse 4. All right. So it says here in Genesis 39, verse 4, and Yusuf found favor in the presence of his master and was well pleasing to him, and he set him over his house, and all that he had, he gave him into the hand of Yusuf. So that's how the LXX, the Septuagint, reads. Now, if you go to the Masoretic, it would say, so Yusuf found favor in his eyes and served him, and he appointed him over his house and gave into his hands all that he had. So for whatever reason, they don't want you, the Masoretes take the word master out of there, I guess, because they don't want you to think that Yusuf is still being subject to Pharaoh and all that. I don't know. They could have some weird rabbinical thing, because the context here is that he's under even Potiphar still at this point. Mind you, this is before he got into, Pharaoh's house and all that. So basically, I don't know what the reason would be for that there, other than maybe they don't like the fact that an Israelite would be subject to a Gentile. Maybe they have a preconceived bias about that. I don't know. So anyway, moving on. Genesis 39, verse 16. LXX again has Kurios. Masoretic text has Adon. By the way you can find out whether Adonai is in the verse, even in your English translations, if it has a lowercase Lord. If it's all lowercase, or it has like a small capital L and the rest is lowercase for Lord, that's Adonai there, just by the way. Genesis 39, verse 17, Masoretic text omits and said to me, I will lie with you. So again, we see a pretty big part of the story of Yusuf here. Now, this is important in my opinion, because this shows that she was lusting after him. Obviously, his wife's in the wrong and Yusuf's not. You could get that from the story, but this is showing more or less like she's almost like borderline raping the guy.
Yeah.
In the Septuagint, it makes it clear that she's like almost trying to force him to do it. Genesis 39:17 in the Septuagint says, and she spoke to him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant whom you brought into, oh, my bad, never mind. So verse 17 is claiming that it says, you brought him in to come and mock me and said to me, I will lie with you. Okay, so she's trying to claim that Yusuf was trying to rape her.
Right.
The Masoretic leaves that phrase out, though, I will lie with you. So I guess they're not I don't know, it's weird, like they're leaving out stuff that would change the whole narrative. It seems like they have certain problems with the story or whatever. So anyway, so let's see here. We have Genesis 39:19, again with Kurios versus Adon. Same thing with Genesis 40, verse 1, 41, verse 21. Masoretic text omits, I slept. So let's see here. Genesis 41:21. Okay, so all right. And they went into their bellies, and it was not perceptible that they had gone into their bellies, and their appearance was ill-favored, as also at the beginning. And after I awoke, I slept. So it's basically letting you know in the Septuagint that once Yusuf, woken up from this dream, he went back to sleep. Where the Masoretic just says he awokened. So doesn't mention whether he stayed awake or not. So that's the major difference there. So now we have, okay, that's redundant there. I already have that on the other bullet point. Okay, so Genesis 42 verse 19, Masoretic text adds famine of your houses. Okay, we're going to see if we actually need that there. So 42 verse 19, and the Septuagint says, and if you be peaceable, let one of your brothers be detained in the prison, but you go and carry back the grain you have purchased. So it seems like peaceable is omitted there in Genesis 42 verse 19. Excuse me. All right, so I believe that was Genesis 42:19. Oh, and also Masoretic text also adds famine of your houses. All right, Genesis 43:14. Again, LXX says my Elohim. Masoretic would say Al Shaddai. All right, moving on here. Let's see here. Okay. I think after this bullet point we'll end for the night. I still haven't fully compiled all the differences here. I still got about like 2 or 3 more chapters to go. So we'll after this bullet point, I think we'll end it for tonight. Or no, actually after the next one. So Genesis 44 verse 9, Masoretic text adds also. So the Masoretic adds also there. So Genesis 44 verse 9. Okay, so Genesis 44 verse 9. And with whomsoever of your servants you shall find the cup, let him die. Moreover, we will be servants to our master. Okay. Okay. Okay, not much different there. I don't know why I even have that written down. It seems like exactly the same there. Might have to take that one down. Oh, okay, I see Masoretic text adds also. Okay, yeah, that's very minor. Okay. Genesis 45 verse 2. Masoretic text omits reported to. So we're going to look at Genesis 45:2. So Genesis 45 verse 2. All right, so Genesis 45 verse 2, first from the Masoretic. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. So Septuagint says he uttered his voice with weeping, and all the Egyptians heard, and it was reported to the house of Pharaoh. The difference is that the Masoretic would have you believe that the house of Pharaoh, like his voice reached to the house of Pharaoh, versus Septuagint says it was reported, which would mean that they went to Pharaoh's house and told him about it. So a little minor difference there, a little subtle difference. So that's the end of the study for tonight. Please stay tuned, everyone. We're going to be doing, I guess this would be probably a part 4 or part 5 next time. So please stay tuned, everyone. If you like these types of studies and you like this type of material we do, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And, you know, if you guys, all of our brothers and sisters in Yahushua out there, if you're looking for fellowship, please let me know. We would love to have you guys on guests, and you know, if you feel comfortable, you know, you guys eventually could become, you know, permanent members of the fellowship. But either way, I just want to say to all of our brothers and sisters out there, have a great rest of your Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, and stay tuned till next time. Shabbat Shalom.